Now, what did he say? He said, Yada sangharate chayam kurmanga sarvasha indriyani indriyarthebhyas tasya pragya pratishtita. So, what he said was that when a tortoise is attacked, okay, when a tortoise is attacked, then the tortoise retreats into its shell. Okay, in the same way, your senses, when the senses can retreat from the sense objects, that is being steadfast in knowledge. That is, when you can retreat your senses from the sense organs, then you are established in wisdom or in knowledge. Aditi, you tell this, and then I'm going to, explain this because it
Okay.
needs a little bit of explanation.
Dice que vamos a ver el verso 58 del Gita, pero primero tenemos que hablar del 57 porque es una continuación. Y el 57 lo que decía es que cuando una tortuga es atacada, la tortuga se retira al cascarón. De la misma forma, cuando tus sentidos se retraen de los objetos percibidos por estos sentidos, este retraimiento de los objetos, de los sentidos, retirados de los objetos de los sentidos, te establece en el conocimiento, te establece en la sabiduría, te establece en el yoga.
Okay.
Yes.
So now, how to retreat the senses from the sense objects? Like, we know that we have 5 senses, and all these 5 senses has 5 sense objects. Like, we have eyes. Eyes is a sense, and the sense object of eye is form. Okay. In the same way, ears. The sense object of ears is sound. Nose is a sense. So the sense object of nose is smell. Then tongue, it's a sense, and the sense object of tongue is, taste. And skin is a sense, and the sense object is touch. So, it says that eyes has to be separated from the form. The ears has to be separated from the sound. Nose has to be separated from, from smell. Isn't it ridiculous? Then, this tongue has to be separated from taste, and skin has to be separated from touch. How it is possible? Is it possible that you open your eyes and you don't see anything? Is it possible? Or you are moving around in this world and you don't hear anything? Is it possible? It is only possible when when your mind is in control of your senses. If your mind can restrain your senses, if your mind can control your senses, that is the only way by which the senses can be separated from the sense objects. Aditi.
Entonces, lo que nos habla es que cuando los sentidos se retiran de los objetos percibidos por estos sentidos, esto es que, por ejemplo, los sentidos, el sentido de los ojos, por ejemplo, de la vista, de los ojos, el objeto del sentido es la forma. Para las orejas, para el oído, el objeto percibido, el objeto del sentido es el sonido. Para la nariz, el objeto percibido, el objeto del sentido es el olor, y para la lengua es el gusto y para la piel es el tacto. Así tenemos 5 sentidos y 5 formas, 5 objetos percibidos diferentes para cada sentido. Entonces lo que nos dice es que los ojos deben separarse de la forma, las orejas deben separarse del sonido, la nariz debe separarse del olor, la lengua debe separarse del gusto y la piel debe separarse del tacto. Pero ¿cómo es posible? Si abres los ojos no ves nada, ¿cómo es posible que tengas orejas y no oigas nada. Es posible cuando la mente controla los sentidos, cuando la mente restringe estos sentidos. Y es la única forma de separarse de los objetos.
Okay. Aditi?
Yes, Swamiji.
So it's done?
Yes.
Okay. So, if the mind can control the senses, then it is easy for the senses to separate itself from the sense objects. Now, how can the mind be in control? The mind can only be in control if the mind is controlled by the intellect, because the intellect decides what to do and what not to. The intellect decides where the mind should go and where the mind should not go. So if the intellect is restrained, if the intellect is if the intellect can control the mind, then only the mind can control the senses. Okay. So, and if the senses are controlled, then only the senses can get rid of the sense objects. So it's not that the senses can get rid of the sense objects automatically. There is a full chain behind this. The mind should be in control, as well as that mind should be controlled by the intellect. Okay, Aditi?
Sí, entonces lo que nos dice es que la mente controla la mente es la que al final controla los sentidos. Entonces esta mente, ¿cómo la podemos tener bajo control para separar los sentidos de los objetos de los sentidos? Pues controlando el intelecto, porque el intelecto es el que finalmente controla la mente. Dónde va la mente y dónde no va la mente. El intelecto tiene control sobre eso. Entonces, el intelecto controla la mente, a dónde va, la mente restringe los sentidos y entonces hay una separación de los objetos de los sentidos. Es toda una cadena. Entonces, a través del control en el intelecto, que se controla la mente, los sentidos y hay esa separación con los objetos.
Okay.
Yes.
Now the intellect can control the mind only when the intellect is connected with wisdom. Generally the intellect is connected with the ego. So because intellect is connected with the ego, then then the intellect cannot control the mind, and if the mind is not controlled by the intellect, then the mind cannot control the senses. Okay. So if the intellect is connected with wisdom or knowledge, then only intellect can restrain the mind, control the mind, and direct it towards the the self or consciousness. And if the mind is directed towards consciousness, then only the the senses will also be directed towards the consciousness. And in this process, because the senses are directed towards consciousness, that is why the senses does not get attached to or connected to the sense objects. So it is only when the whole chain, that is mind, intellect, they are connected with the self, then only the senses can be separated from the sense objects. Okay. And if you can do this in this way, then only your wisdom is steadfast. That is, you are established in knowledge.
Ok. Entonces, lo que nos dice es que lo que estamos diciendo es que el intelecto debe controlar la mente. Porque, ¿cómo controlar el intelecto entonces que controla toda esta cadena? Pues asociando este intelecto conectando este intelecto con la sabiduría. Porque normalmente este intelecto está controlado por el ego. Y el ego controla la mente, controla los sentidos y los sentidos se apegan a los objetos percibidos. Entonces, cuando el intelecto está conectado a la sabiduría, solo así la dirección, la atención, la asociación va al self y a la conciencia. El intelecto conectado con la sabiduría se conecta con el ser y con la conciencia. En este proceso, los sentidos se conectan con la conciencia y la dirección es la conexión con la conciencia y no con los objetos. En este proceso, los sentidos se conectan con la conciencia y no se conectan con los objetos de los sentidos. Entonces, toda esta cadena se conecta con el ser, con la conciencia. Y es posible separar los objetos de los sentidos y establecerse en el yoga, establecerse en el conocimiento. Okay.
Okay. So, you know, if this whole thing, like if your intellect and mind are directed towards the self, then the sense objects will also be directed towards the self, and thus the sense object cannot, if your intellect and mind is connected with the self, then the senses will be also be connected to the consciousness or the self, and thus it can get rid of the sense objects. Now this is one way of looking into this, and that is Krishna says that if a person's senses is separate from the sense objects, then you should know that he is established in yoga or he is established in knowledge. Why he said this is because of this, that if his senses has to separate from the sense objects, then the mind and intellect should be connected with the self. And when the mind and intellect is connected with the self, it does not remain as an intellect or mind, it also becomes the self. So it is, so the senses are in direct connection with the self. Okay, and that is what Krishna said. So this is the real meaning, but it can be interpreted in this way also. Whatever we discuss now is the real meaning of Lord Krishna. Now we can interpret it in this way also, because Lord Krishna has said that one who can separate his sense objects from his senses, this person is actually established in yoga or established in the self. If we interpret in this way, then I am closing my eyes. So when I close my eyes, I separate my eyes from the sense objects. So if I close my eyes, is it being steadfast in knowledge? Everybody in this world, they close their eyes. So are all of them enlightened?
No.
Or I'm just shutting my, I'm closing my ears. I'm blocking my ears, and I'm blocking all the sounds which comes into the ear. So I'm not listening anything. So if I'm not listening anything, then also I am separating my senses from the sense objects. So if I do this, is it being steadfast in knowledge? It's not like this, no? So just to tell people, or just to clarify, that Krishna did not mean just separation of sense and the sense object. When he said that the senses should be separated from the sense object, he meant that the whole process, senses, mind and intellect should all be directed towards the sense, towards the self. And if it is directed towards the self, then only it is possible that the senses can be separated from the sense objects. So this is what Krishna meant. He did not mean that only separate your senses from the sense objects and you are enlightened. He did not mean this, and that is why that is what he's going to clarify in the next verse. Aditi.
Entonces, estábamos diciendo que si el intelecto y la mente está dirigido a la conciencia, los sentidos nos asociaban a los objetos. Y aquel que sus sentidos nos asociaban a los objetos de los sentidos estaba establecido en el yoga. Entonces lo que nos dice Swamiji es que lo que habla el Gita es que cuando la mente y el intelecto se conectan con el ser, se convierten en el ser. Entonces los sentidos directamente se conectan a la conciencia y al ser. Y Krishna, esto es lo que dice. Entonces, ¿qué podemos interpretar de eso? Podemos interpretar que aquel que separa sus sentidos de los objetos de los sentidos, esa persona se establece en el yoga, en el ser. Pero lo cierto es que si tú cierras los ojos, que hay mucha gente que cierra los ojos, esa persona que cierra los ojos y no percibe nada, de ninguna forma porque tiene los ojos cerrados, está establecida en el ser, está iluminada. O si tú tapas tus orejas, entonces estás tapando tus orejas del sonido, está establecida. Obvio que no, ¿no? Lo que Krishna quiere decir no es este tipo de separación, se refiere a todo el proceso, a toda la cadena, que es una asociación con el ser, que está dirigida a la conciencia y está dirigida al ser. Y en esta dirección al ser, esto es posible. El yoga y el establecerte en el conocimiento es posible.